Hello, mamas, and welcome back to Map for a New Motherhood. I'm here today with Chantal Blake, who is a womb steaming facilitator, an educator, and a project manager. And her combined training in practical nursing, environmental engineering, and Peristeam Hydrotherapy guides her holistic approach to wellness education that centers around self-care, sacred sexuality, and traditional womb steaming. Chantal currently lives in Oman, where she unschools her two children and serves women through online consultations, workshops, summits, and courses. Welcome, Chantal. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Karina.
Yeah. So I'm curious how you got into the womb steaming, and and I know you had, I'm assuming, but I don't know, that the other stuff was before the womb steaming, the environmental engineering. Yeah. So I'm curious how that
Yeah.
that evolved.
Yeah. Well, my mom is a nurse. So growing up, I wanted to be just like my mom. So I thought, I'm going to be a nurse too. I'm going to go to the same college. I'm going to be a nurse just like her. And so in New York City, we have a couple of vocational high schools, and I picked a high school that had a nursing program. So I was able to study nursing while finishing my high school degree. And at some point, I was just really passionate about medical care and helping people. And I had thought I would be traveling the world and doing medical service, Peace Corps type work
Uh-huh.
in different countries. By the time I got to college and started as a pre-med student, I came to realize that a significant population in the world don't even have safe drinking water.
Right.
So I said, okay, this is more important than healthcare. So it really bothered me and it stayed on my mind and my heart. And I said, I think I have to do something about it. So that led me to environmental engineering.
Uh-huh.
So that was my next career. And at some point, I got married and started traveling. And I thought about all the things I wanted to do before becoming a mom. And when motherhood found me 5 years in, I realized, like, wow, mothering is a powerful way of changing the world too. I
Yes.
had thought these careers were going to be how I'm going to make this huge impact on the world. And I had a really deep realization that mothering, you're literally creating the future. You're creating the next generation that's going to hopefully take better care of each other and of the planet and of the world. So then mothering really took me into another place of just realizing the being versus the doing and that aspect of change. And as I was mothering, at some point I came to realize that I had some hormonal issues going on.
Uh-huh.
It There were, between my first and second child, I had two miscarriages, and I was like, I consider myself a pretty healthy person. What's going on?
Yeah.
And I came to realize, like, wow, I've never known how to care for my womb and care for
Mm.
myself hormonally and to honor that. You think of diet and health being this one size fits all, but I didn't really realize that women have a unique makeup. We're not just small men. We
Right.
have
Right.
a cyclical nature. We're very dynamic. And so my own hormonal healing journey um, exposed me to a whole new world of information that I was like, I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse and engineer, and no one ever taught me how to take care of my body and how to honor
Right.
my womb. What happened?
Yeah.
So the last piece of the puzzle in my particular hormonal journey, at least the next piece for me, was to actually have body work done. So I got a better understanding of how to feed myself and to support my hormonal nature, to find balance, and learned about estrogen dominance and all of these things. But I was like, I think the last thing I need to do is some actual body work. So I went for a Mayan abdominal massage,
Uh-huh.
and it starts with a steam. And then that was like the start of my personal steaming journey.
Wow.
And then when I heard Kelly Garza on a podcast talking about how steaming can help support women after birth,
Hmm.
preventing different types of injuries and prolapse. And then I said, aha, this is something that I can give to women. So that's how I got into womb steaming.
Wow, what a beautiful journey. It's so many twists and turns, and just
Mhm.
what I hear throughout is just like a really deep connection to your intuition, and knowing like
Mm,
what you needed to do next, and then just discovering all these incredible modalities to
yeah.
support yourself, and then you brought it over time, brought that forth to other women and
Yes.
mothers, or yeah.
Yes, yeah. I primarily, my main focus. Well, I thought that I primarily want to serve women following birth, but as I'm just realizing now, I'm becoming really impassioned. A new passion is emerging
Yeah.
about teenagers, and
Ah,
younger menstruators. So I read a ton, I research a lot, and everyone's saying the same thing. I wish I knew this earlier.
yes.
But the research that's coming out about all this great body literacy, cycle syncing, and all this great information, it's being written to adult women.
Mm,
It's not being written to teenagers,
yeah.
younger women. So that's been the latest iteration of my passion and my journey is like,
Wow.
how do I get all of this to younger women so
Yeah.
they don't get stuck in this painful period? I hate my body. Birth control sounds good. And then a decade later,
Right.
realizing, oh, I was not given full information. So I couldn't have given full consent to
Yeah.
what I was signing up for by taking on hormonal birth control. So that's my latest project.
Wow. So inspiring. I have a 13-year-old daughter, and so I really love that. And I have introduced her to steaming. She doesn't have her cycle yet, but we've done it a few times, and
Awesome.
she's like, "Oh, this is really relaxing."
Aw, my daughter is 10 and she can't wait. She's like, I can't wait until my moon cycle. Even my son, who's almost 6, they just love to be around me when I'm steaming.
Mm.
When I'm not steaming, they're asking me, when are you going to steam? And they
Oh,
love
wow.
playing with my sauna and stool,
Oh,
hiding toys in it.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your journey into motherhood. You said there was a way you worded it. It was like it came for you or something. That was
Yeah. My younger brother is about 10 years younger than me. So I think I naturally assumed a very maternal role with him.
yeah.
My mom always says I'm like a mother hen, like I'm always mothering people, mothering my siblings, mothering my friends. And so I never really thought about, I knew that tendency, that nature was always with me. I felt like a second mom to my younger brother because he was so much younger.
Yeah.
My mom was a bit older. She was around 40 when she had him. And so she was working, she was going back to school. So I felt like he was my test ride in mothering. Yeah, at some point, I realized like, wow, I've dedicated so much of my time to my academic study. What can I do to position myself to be the best at this new career called mothering?
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure that I mothered from a place of fulfillment. And so I wanted to make sure that I did the things that I felt were important for me to do for my own sense of self
Mm,
before becoming a mom. And so for me, that was traveling,
yeah.
being able to travel without child
Right.
initially,
Yeah.
being able to pay off my debts was really important to me because I didn't want any pressure to go back into a traditional professional working life.
Hmm.
Once I became a mom, I wanted a bit more financial freedom. So it was
Yeah.
important for me to be debt free, pay off my student loans, and I just kept checking things off of this list this
Wow.
little list I had for myself. And actually, I don't even think, I think it was more of an awareness that once those goals were met, that I was just open to receiving motherhood. It wasn't a clear, I'm going to do this and then stop doing this, or I
Uh-huh.
just, once I reached those goals and I knew in my heart that I was ready to invite motherhood, and then shortly found out I was expecting after then.
Wow. You said a couple of things earlier that I really that actually just gave me chills, which was one thing was about your beingness, like your presence, and really understanding how important that was in your mothering. And then the other piece was around, realizing that mothering is actually a revolutionary act. It can be a revolutionary act, right? Because we are, as you said, raising the next generation, and as such, we are leaders and we are change makers as mothers. But I don't think most of us think of it that way consciously, and
Mhm.
so it's
Yeah.
really beautiful to hear you bring voice to that. And I would love to just hear a little bit more about how you are leading your children, and what are the biggest values that
Mm.
you're wanting to instill. And
Yeah, I think firstly was just learning to value motherhood. There's not a lot of, it's a very thankless job, especially in the early years,
yeah.
and everyone in their judgment. It's. I remember everyone asking me, when are you going to go back to work? When are you going to stop breastfeeding? My
Mm,
family, a lot of family pressure. My parents are immigrants from Jamaica, so that kind of immigrant mentality, like, okay, opportunities, and go for success, and having a very fixed definition of success.
yeah.
And it really took me to a place of having to reevaluate, like, my self-worth as a mother who
Hmm.
chose to be at home, and chose to not earn an income,
Yeah.
and even other people's assumptions about, well, what that means about power. For some people, money is power, and I really had to explore what the value of my role as a mom is, and really finding purpose in that. So just valuing motherhood, and seeing that it is enough. you know
Mm.
um, I can do other things, and that's great, but I don't feel that my mothering is a reflection of, like, I lack ambition, or I lack
Right.
intelligence, or anything like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, just that conscious decision to not be measured by the societal standard of worth and success
Yeah.
for my own measure was a huge part of just embracing motherhood, and just really being able to enjoy it and be present with it, and not figure out what else can I do to feel worthwhile, or what else can I do for people to recognize me.
Yeah.
So just easing into that, I think, is the first, hopefully the first value that I'm imparting to my children, that
Yeah.
mothering can be fulfilling and joyful,
Hmm.
and it can be enough if that is your path, and
Yeah.
that's the path that you want. It can be enough. And then also, in our upbringing, the way that my husband and I choose to raise our children, just to really be centered on values and conscientiousness. So the choice to unschool even has really been a way for us to focus on character development more
Hmm.
than genius development.
Yeah. Yeah.
For,
Right. Right.
there's a lot of pressure there as well. People
Yeah.
think, oh, aren't you concerned about grade levels and exams and college one day? And I feel like in the early formative years, there's so much heart work to be done, and really raising emotionally intelligent and resilient children is really important to me.
Yes.
Raising children who are environmentally aware, and socially compassionate and empathetic. And so really focusing on those values has I think those are some of the core principles of how we're changing the future.
Yeah. Wow. So powerful. How did you get into unschooling?
Well, that you just never went to school. It
Okay,
was
so it
just
wasn't you didn't go to school
I
and then
did.
transition them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
think I would have been a great unschooling and homeschooling candidate when I was a child, but that wasn't available to me. But
Yeah.
I think I just kept staying home. Like I just kept on. I was just like, no, no, no. I don't want to hire someone else to care for you when I want to be the one
Yeah.
caring for you and influencing you. And I think early on, because I became a mom here in Oman. Um, I had some concerns that maybe locally and culturally people wouldn't understand the values that I wanted to impart to my child, like the dietary values. Like we're a plant-based family, so
Mhm.
there was a certain amount of, oh well, people understand that and respect the way we choose to eat. I don't. Really tried to practice positive parenting, and I saw a lot of very different, disciplinary styles
Yeah.
that a lot of comparison and shaming and blaming, which is not unique to here, of course, but
Right.
I just saw these disciplinary styles and behavior management styles that they didn't speak to me, that I didn't find them to be healthy or what we wanted for our children. So I think it became this way of just reinforcing the values that we felt really strongly about. And I
Yeah.
just kept staying home, kept staying home.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, school age came and went. And, we're
Mhm.
still home and able to really unfold into the day. I think that's been the biggest gift I've been able to give my children and myself is that,
Mhm.
the freedom to unfold into the day in a way that feels peaceful and restful and not rushed or pressured by other people's schedules, other people's agendas.
Yeah.
So it's been liberating. I believe that this will be a liberating experience for them to really hold on to and carry with them whatever else happens in their path. But certainly for me, I don't know how people do the morning crazy
I
school.
know.
I guess you
Yeah.
adapt.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I've mostly done homeschooling or been part of like homeschool cooperatives, so I haven't really done much of the teaching. And then in the last since we moved up to Tennessee in September, I've shifted more into unschooling.
mm,
Except my oldest daughter, she's very structured. She likes a lot of structure, so she's doing a online virtual school.
awesome.
But I also I love that about unschooling. Just being gonna follow your own what your body wants in the moment and let your day unfold like you said. So without a lot
Yeah,
of like rush and structure
yeah.
and yeah,
And I think even just the medicine of rest is so neglected,
absolutely.
alarm clocks and getting kids up so early. And I mean, sometimes before you even realize they're sick, they just need more rest, and it can change the recovery or
Right.
even the extent to which they get sick. So I think rest and peace are valuable.
Valuable, right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
What would you say your biggest struggle in motherhood has been?
Other than the earlier years of, still trying to figure out how to reassess my self-worth after, as I said earlier, I
Mhm.
think it's the doubting and the wanting to be another type of mom
Mm,
sometimes, or thinking that, oh, I wish I was the crafty mom, or I wish
yeah.
I was the baking mom type. And it's taken me time to realize that, the being the authentic mother that I am is much more sustainable for all of us.
Yeah.
And it's just truer, and especially as my kids get older, I'm realizing I don't have to be all things for them all the time. Like there can be other adults in their orbit who fulfill those needs for them. If it's a true need, sometimes we just imagine like, oh, a proper homeschooling or unschooling mom is this prototype. And when you don't feel like you fit that prototype, you're like trying to stretch yourself to fit. And there's always room for growth. And I just find it more fulfilling to learn with my children and grow with them, as opposed to putting on a front that I've got this certain skill or
Yeah.
personality that's not true to me, you know, like instead of forcing myself to be that kind of mom that I'm not, I'd rather just grow with them and authentically be the mom that I am. And
Yeah.
that's taken some time, you know,
Yeah.
that's something that it kind of comes and goes in waves. Like sometimes I'm really confident that, you know, we're all happy, things are going well.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just something in your mind or another person in your ear. What are you
Yeah.
going to do about this? What are you going to do about that? And you have to kind of come back to that center.
Yeah.
So just the staying centered part and being true and authentic and in the way I parent and in the way that we live and learn together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm hearing that, just really seeing a theme and of authenticity in all that you do. And that's really, I feel like, at the heart of this idea of the mother fly, this archetype of really
Yeah.
knowing yourself first and foremost, and having a regular way that you care for yourself, even though you are
Mhm.
a mom. And I know you spoke
Yeah.
of that early on in our talk
Yeah.
today. What are some of your favorite forms of self-care?
I'm learning that boundaries around my time are really important.
Yeah.
Getting more comfortable with saying no to opportunities that don't feel well aligned.
Yeah.
And that's taken a while, especially like when I made a shift for there was a period of time where I was doing freelance writing. And I remember being so hungry for a byline or to have my name on someone's website. And again, that still trying to find that validation, that external validation.
Mhm.
And I remember at a certain point realizing opportunities were starting to come to me instead of me chasing them, and then realizing that, oh, but this doesn't feel like it's in alignment with what I care about and what I'm passionate about. You know, there are things that I could do, but I don't want to do.
Yeah.
And giving myself permission to turn down opportunities or offers that don't feel in alignment with how I want to use my time and my energy.
Yeah.
So that's been a newer frontier of self care. Um, Definitely rest has
Yeah.
been safeguarding rest. I don't know, in especially early mothering, I did not see rest as an act of self care.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't prioritize getting enough of it. I mean, you have your natural challenges, but then we also have our imagined priorities of being able to be on social media or social,
Right.
you know, stay up later and do different things.
Yeah.
So now I'm getting older. I'm appreciating rest as self care, and just being really intentional about feeding myself well and
Mhm.
my period care, you know, steaming and resting. So I think those are, I'm not a big I don't do like retail therapy. I'm not a big go out and spend kind of person.
Yeah.
But I will say that I realized it took me some time to realize it that I need to stay connected to my relationships, and my friendships is a huge part of self-care. I used to feel like, oh, let me just put together these play dates because my kids need to play with other kids. And I
Mhm.
realized I wasn't giving myself permission to say, look, I want to play date. I
Right.
want to
Right.
be with my friends. And so, and that was easier as they got older. When they were a little less dependent on me, I can ring up a friend and say, you know, can we go for lunch or can we take a walk? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, having older children now, that's a newer form of self care that I'm really enjoying, is just going on dates again
Hmm.
with people I like to spend company with other than my partner.
Yeah, right, right. And would you say that you have a village that you've created that supports you, or is it more just
Mm.
a few select? Like, is it? Do you feel like there's a community aspect in your life?
There is, and it's been challenging because I've lived in different countries, and a couple of countries I only lived in for 1 year. So, in those states, in those circumstances, I used to really rely on, I guess, the virtual connection with some of my good friends that I have. So we're scattered about, but having to really call on them every once in a while just to feel that sense of connection. But here where I live now, I've lived here for the last 4 years.
Hmm.
So I feel like I have been able to create some semblance of a village, people that I trust enough to let in,
Yeah.
to ask for help. And so, yeah, I would say I have a small village. It's still, the virtual village is actually a very strong part of it. I have some dear old friends, and we only talk like once a year, but it like feeds me
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
So there's still the backdrop of those like anchors in my
Hmm.
sisterhood.
Hmm.
But locally, I do feel like I have a semblance of a village.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And so, do you work one-on-one with people with the holistic health coaching, or you do mostly courses? Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, I think most of, when I started, with womb steaming and consultations, I thought it was going to be a mostly in-person business with
Uh-huh.
workshops and markets, and that's how it started. And then around March, everything changed of last year, right?
Right.
So I was kind of propelled into a more virtual business.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, I mostly do one on one consultations and workshops, classes, all online. Um, that's mostly what I do. Yeah, most of my projects are online now. I do
Yeah.
miss really sitting with women.
Mhm.
That was a really tender part of, what my business started out as, being
Yeah.
able to go to women's homes and set up steaming for them, and really give them that active service and care, and
Yeah.
just to sit with them while they steam, and then they just open up and share,
Mhm.
how they
Mhm.
feel. And that was a those I definitely treasure that, and I would like for that to be a reality in the future again, maybe small group sessions or
Yeah.
private sessions, but for now it's mostly one-on-one,
Okay.
virtual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, everything has changed into a more
Hmm.
virtual reality. Um,
Yeah.
and so is steaming something that is a practice of the culture there, or how have women received it if it's not?
Great question. It seems like it was more of a distant part of the culture here.
Okay.
So I've had to, one thing that was really important to me after certifying in vaginal steaming was to really figure out how to present it in a way that was culturally compatible.
Yeah.
I really didn't want to import American herbs. I wanted to research local herbs. And in researching local herbs and talking with local herbalists, they did say that yes, there is a practice of steaming here. Um, Sitz baths after birth are more common. It
Okay.
doesn't seem like steaming is done as oft as commonly in this generation as well as the previous generation. But people who have held to plant medicine all this time and didn't just transition to Western medicine with the development of the country,
Uh-huh.
people who they seem to still be aware that this can be done after your after your menstrual period, after birth. So I've been trying to kind of revive the practice, though the way that I do it is different than how they've done it in the past. Usually they just have a set recipe of herbs that
Okay.
doesn't really change much.
Uh-huh.
So there is a connection here. There's also a large Swahili community here. In East Africa, there's still a bit more awareness about steaming too. So that's been an advantage. And I've also have really needed to brand it more so as womb steaming as opposed to vaginal steaming because
Uh-huh.
it translates better here.
Yeah.
So it's been well received for the most part, but I think people are still trying to figure out how to assess the value of what I'm giving them. So
Uh-huh.
even if they hear that it's helpful, there's still a sense of like, how do I assess the cost or the value of the
Uh-huh.
service?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm finding is challenging.
Okay. Yeah. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah. Hold on one second. I'm gonna pause for
Sure.
so the third annual survey from Motherly just came out on the state of motherhood in the US, and it's pretty bad. But the it was said 97% of moms are feeling some degree of burnout, and
Mm,
84, I believe 84% or so feel unsupported by society. And then, of course, we have
mm.
very high rates of perinatal mood disorders. So I'm just curious what it's like over there.
Yeah, that's a good. I would love to see similar numbers here. There still is a tradition of new moms, even if it's not their first child. There's a tradition after birth of going to either the mother, usually the mother's home for the 40-day
Uh-huh.
sacred window, the 40 days of postpartum. So that's still practiced here, and I'm sure that helps
Yeah.
with mood disorders. I do know that some of the maybe the more cosmopolitan mothers who are living in the city, maybe not as connected to their home communities or villages that they originated from.
Hmm.
I know that sometimes it feels isolating for them because they're either resisting that tradition or they don't have access to it because maybe they live too far from their moms or their original kind of village home.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm really concerned about the rate of induction here. So in the women that I work with who are using vaginal steaming to prepare for labor,
Mm.
I'm more often than not, I'm told they're being pressured for inductions before their due date, or there's this fear around passing the due date or having too big of a baby. I'm not sure where
Hmm.
it's coming from,
Yeah.
but more mothers than not end up having cesareans. And
Mm.
that concerns me very deeply because I feel like it reinforces a belief that women's bodies are broken,
Right.
that we don't know how to birth anymore, and that we cannot birth without machines and
Yeah.
technology and medical care professionals
Mm.
inserting themselves into our bodies in some way or
Yeah.
another.
Yeah.
That concerns me. I do feel like maternity leave is very consistent here for working moms.
Okay.
There is an expectation that they'll have paid maternity leave. They'll still have their job waiting for them. So, for working moms, I think there's good support in that sense.
Yeah.
There's job security there, and it's culturally, it's very normative. Families are quite large here traditionally as well.
Uh-huh.
So generally, I feel like there's still a reverence for birth and an
Yeah.
honoring of birth, which is good. And like I said, I'm just concerned about the method of birth. That's
Yeah.
been really that might be that might be my next
Your
project.
next project, right? Right. Well, it's good to hear that those postpartum traditions are still in place. I'm sure
Yeah.
there's been maybe some diluting of them, or they're not happening as much in the
Yes.
cities, but I think that's so important. I feel like the postpartum time is so underestimated and under supported.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, in the worst case scenario, the moms are getting 40 days of rest without cooking or cleaning and having someone care for them, which is like a luxury compared
Yeah,
to
right?
many of
I'm
us
like,
in
that's
the
the worst
US.
case. That's pretty
That's the
good.
worst case scenario.
Okay.
I feel like there is a slight loss of like the actual healing modalities. So like the
Okay.
body work.
Uh-huh.
There's still a good awareness about herbs and certain foods for postpartum. That awareness is still present,
Yeah.
but steaming, binding, pelvic floor work, body work, I
Mhm.
feel like there's definitely a need to draw more attention to like the actual healing treatments for the mother
Yeah.
that should happen after birth. But even in their, like I said, worst case scenario, is still a luxury compared to many women in other parts of the world. So not too
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. And is that part of your work, just bringing more awareness to these practices? Is that part of like your courses or the education that you provide one-on-one? Is
Yeah.
yeah, educating them
Yeah,
about these?
the steaming is that gateway, you know. It's a gateway into that conversation. So it's something that I talk quite a bit about and try to offer, even though I don't consider myself I don't feel like it's my calling to provide that service of like the actual postpartum doula role
Okay.
or the masseuse or what have you, but trying to open that conversation with steaming. And I sell traditional belly binds and
Okay.
trying to at least provide the products that will start the conversation.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And where can people find you?
Oh, mostly online. So most of the work that I do around steaming is on my Instagram page at Honored Womb, HonouredWomb. You know, it's British English is used
Okay.
here, so honored with a U.
Okay.
And then there's also a women's course that I teach at Deeper Feminine. And so that's a course that's centered around holistic self care and sacred sexuality. And those are the main ways. Yeah, social media is probably the two main ways to find me.
Okay. Well, I'll be sure to include those in the notes.
Thank you.
And you reminded me of something that I wanted to ask you about before
Mhm.
we end, which is just yeah, the sacred sexuality piece, because I feel like sexuality and motherhood are like these things that don't go together according to
Mhm.
society
Yeah.
and culture in many places. So curious what your work is with that.
Yeah, that's mostly been virtual too. I don't. It's a course that's mostly in English. It is all in English, and so most of the women who participate in that course have been from the U.S. and the U.K. primarily. Some from Australia, and the vision for that was just reimagining what holistic sex education could look like. That really was. Centered around health and wellness and like an anchored sense of femininity for one's own self, not like performative
Uh-huh.
womanhood or like relationship womanhood, but just how do you really harness wellness and vitality and seeing sexuality as a natural extension of just being well and vital and whole and embodied.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, it's such an important part. A lot of the women in that course, I would say most of the women are between 25 and 35. Some are married, some are not, some are mothers, some aren't. But the goal and the vision has always been just to really have a fuller definition of our femininity, you know, and not just seeing it as a role that serves someone else,
Yeah.
but as a part of our identity that's yeah, that's big and beautiful and wholesome and not shameful and not, a weakness. I think that's a
Right.
really important
Yes.
part of it as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was the big focus of last year. We had a online summit of almost 2,000 women from around the world
Wow.
who joined our Sacred Sexuality Summit. And so hopefully the vision for our next summit is to focus on teens and how we can engage them in, body literacy and just holistic wellness and period care. And I'm really concerned about our younger
Yeah.
menstruators.
So that summit is going to be specifically for teens
Yes.
or yeah. Oh wow. I definitely want to
Yeah.
know about that.
Sure, of
For my
course.
daughter, yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much. This has been really rich, and I appreciate your time and you sharing your wisdom and your light with us. And is there anything else that you'd like to share with the mamas tuning in before we go?
Well, this, if, well, I think, I don't know if this will be after the summit. It's probably will be after the summit goes live, but
Mhm.
on my main page by Chantal Blake is where I kind of hone in everything that I'm doing. So the workshops that I do for teens,
Okay.
the classes that I do for women. Yeah, too many pages. Trying to streamline that.
So it's chantalblake.com or
By Chantal Blake is my social media Instagram.
okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, you'll send it to me and I'll put it in the notes.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you so much. Have a beautiful
And
day.
thank you for hosting this summit. It's much needed.
Yes, my pleasure. All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.